Listeners, you are at 6CB FM World Radio. The program is Connection. Your host is Anna, as I'm quite sure you know that. How could you miss my accent? And it's 11:03 at 6CBA. And you know what? I promise, as I said earlier, I have a very fascinating people. I spoke this morning to Peter Roden, and now I have a very fascinating gentleman. I might say this because it's from my part of the world. I have with me Lubomir Dimitrov, professional astrologer. Lubomir, good morning and welcome to Connections.
Good morning.
And tell me, Lubomir, with a name like yours, you seems to me really my neighbor or something from the Eastern Bloc. Tell me where you come from.
That's correct. I'm born in Eastern Europe, in a country called Bulgaria, which is a neighboring country to yours. So it's very close
Beautiful
to Macedonia, to Yugoslavia, and to Greece.
It's interesting, Lubomir. You said you new arrival. How long have you been in Perth?
I've been in Perth a little bit more than 7 years now.
So that means you are the late immigrant?
I arrived in Australia in 1998.
1998.
Yes.
Right from Bulgaria or from any other parts of the world?
Oh, no, I've been traveling around the world for a while. First of all, I was a student in Russia for about 5.5 years, in Kiev, to be correct, because now this is a part of Ukraine.
Exactly.
And then after that, I went and I lived in Malta for about 6 years. I was employed there as an engineer, because one thing I have to mention is I have a master's degree in engineering as well. So I'm combining, so to speak, the best of both worlds, the scientific part from one hand and the psychic part on the other hand. And then after Malta, then I arrived in Australia, been here for 7 years.
Well, it sounds very fascinating. My first question, I guess it was that you already answered. You have a fabulous profession as an engineer with a master's degree in science. And on the other hand, you are a professional astrologer. Now tell me, how did you combine those two professions, not into the one, but somehow it seems to me they are so apart?
Yes, a lot of people have this perception that if somebody is spiritual, then they have to sort of enter into some kind of a magical world and live there all the time. But my philosophy about it is that we have to combine the best of both worlds without denying the scientific part of the spirit, because the spirit can be studied scientifically just like anything else, just like chemistry, just like physics, etc. And there is a part of my webpage which is dedicated exactly on spiritual science. People who already have entered the spiritual world can make observations over there, and they can see, for example, how the invisible parts of ourselves look like the ethereal body, the astral body, the higher self, etc. And then they can describe this and put this into writing for other people who haven't been able to get into this world, so they can study this with their logical mind, if you wish, so they can make a scientific investigation about this world. So they will be much better prepared later on when they will be in a position to start observing things from the spiritual world to better understand what they see.
Well, that sounds very fascinating. I'll be very honest with you, I really don't know very much about it, but it's lovely to hear. Now, astrology. Would you please explain to me, because as astrology could be taken as a stargazing or astrology in a different wavelengths. Would you please explain to my listeners?
Well, there is a difference between astronomy and astrology. Astronomy is simply interested of what is the chemical composition of the planets, how much methane, how much water there is on there, etc., etc. While astrology is using the scientific bits of astronomy, like, for example, we're studying the traveling of the planets, and the modern computers can calculate the position of the planets with an extraordinary precision, but we're not so much interested from the chemical composition of the planets, but how they affect us on astral level, so how they affect our emotions, how they affect our minds, how they shape our destiny, so to speak. So I started studying astrology about 12 years ago when I was still in Malta. And initially this was just like a hobby for me. So I was just doing the chart of myself, the chart of my wife, the chart of the people I knew. And I was fascinated how accurate description I can get of the characters of these people. And I learned a lot of things which I never knew before about them. And so the more I was studying about it, the more I was delving deeper and deeper into that subject. At that time I was employed as a hospital engineer in the biggest private hospital hospital in Malta. And once I told few people around there that I'm studying this, everybody wanted their chart done.
Of course, yeah, definitely. I was just going to say, this must be fascinating. Now, Lubomir, tell me, how difficult is it to do the chart for someone?
For me, it's not difficult at all. As I said, I've been doing this for 12 years, and I have to admit that when I see a client, when somebody comes to my office and just enters the door, I already can say a lot of things about them just by looking at them. But I still insist that we input over there the scientific element. So I open my laptop, and they tell me their date of birth, place of birth, etc. And so I open their chart, and then by looking at their chart, I can tell them absolutely everything what they need to know about their lives, about their character, about their strengths, about their weaknesses. And so by knowing all this information, they can work on themselves and they can improve themselves, so they can sort of start navigating a little bit more with their destiny. There is certain events in our life are written, cast in stone, which you cannot change. Like, for example, you cannot change who you're going to marry, how many children you're going to have, etc., etc. But there are about 20% of the events which you can change by applying your free will. And the first step in order to be able to do this is to study your astrological chart. So once you have the chart in front of you and you study exactly all the elements which you made from, then you can see what are your strengths, and you can start using this to overcome your weaknesses. And if you work on your weaknesses, then you can improve effectively your karma. You can improve effectively the events which are happening in your life.
Yes,
so
of course.
This 20% which you can navigate a little bit.
It sounds very fascinating, but say question for you. For argument's sake, somebody walks in, and of course, with your knowledge and perception, you are able to sort of judge straight away the person. But if that person sits down and says, okay, I would like you to do my chart for me, but tells you wrong date and birth,
well,
can you detach this, or can you say, look, this has nothing to do with you or something?
I will pick up the discrepancy straight away, because what will come up on the chart will be something what doesn't match to what I see in front of me.
Yes.
And so that actually there have been few cases like this. Few people came with a different date of birth just to test me, but that doesn't work, because I see the person in front of me has completely different characteristic to what I see in front of me. And so then I say, are you sure that this is your time of birth? Actually, that is how I determine the time of birth of people as well. Some people come and say, okay, but I don't know my time of birth, so I cannot do my chart. Well, see, the time of birth determines our ascendant or our rising sign. And this is written on your face, and it's written on everybody's face.
If you know how to read.
If you know where to look at. You see, everything is full of reason, and everything is full of wisdom. If you observe properly a person, how they wash their teeth in the morning, you still can say a lot of things about them. Basically, you can say about 50-60% about their character just by the way they go to the bathroom, the way they pick up the toothbrush, the way they do all these simple movements, etc., etc. So if you know what to observe, how to look at the person, it's not so difficult to tell a lot of things about themselves. And so I look at their face, and their rising sign is written on their face. If it is Leo, it will show Leo. If it is Virgo, it will show Virgo. And then I rectify the chart exactly to match what I see in front of myself, and I can tell people their time of birth. Some of them said, okay, but we are not exactly sure that this is the correct time of birth. So they went to see a kinesiologist, all right? Just to confirm it. And the kinesiology came exactly with the same time of birth, just about 7 minutes difference to what I said. So, you see...
It sounds absolutely fascinating, Lubomir, because I'm quite sure that a lot of people are not really sure. You know, some people, I suppose, take some of the European countries or other countries, they really don't even bother of writing it down, the birth of their child. You know, it says sometimes it's in a season, summer season, or when we were in the fields with a corn or something like this.
Yes.
So that is really challenging if you can predict it. I think this is absolutely fascinating, because that is really it's not prediction, it's knowledge.
Exactly.
It's a knowledge that really that you can have that special capability of seeing in the people. So to me that is more genuine than when you sort of go and do the chart without a questioning. give the wrong bet, and you still got everything is sort of goes as for you, but it doesn't work. So, but what you're doing, that's why I asked you the question, because I knew a lot of people that done that.
Yeah.
So.
Well, see, the difference between astrology and the other methods of divination is exactly this, that, for example, some people are born clairvoyants, and this is one of the topics which I'm going to talk on Conscious Living Expo, about how you can see your psychic abilities revealed by astrology, revealed by your astrological chart. But the problem with these people who haven't approach this scientifically, as astrology is approaching it, is they can see certain things, they can have certain premonitions, but they don't know exactly how to explain that, and they don't know exactly what they see. And so astrology can help us in this respect enormously. And I have many clients who come to me, and they, after, for example, they have 1 hour consultation, they tell me, look, I sort of had a feeling about all these things are sitting within me, but I never was able to properly formulate it, and I never was in a position to actually say all these things which you said to me and which are clearly written in my chart. So that's why I respect astrology so much, and that's why I've been doing it for more than 12 years, because it combines the best of the both worlds. The scientific part on one side, which is I use computers, I use the latest technologies. For example, I build up my websites, so all these things is the scientific part of it. But on the other hand, we are using this technology in order to explain spirit, in order to explain the facts from the spiritual worlds, and this is the beauty about it. If we just simply gaze in the crystal ball or something like that, then we may have a premonition about it. We may see certain pictures, but how to explain those pictures, what they mean. Like, for example, some people can see auras as well. And some people, even if you don't see auras, you can go on a conscious living and you can make your photograph or your aura photograph, and you can see the colors of your aura. But then again, how you will interpret this? What means
That's
red?
What is very important,
Exactly.
Interpretation, and how to take in the best advantage of it.
Exactly.
To help yourself. That is the very most important part, actually, in our exercise.
Well, if you think about the astrology chart is like a schematic of your aura, if you wish. So, for example, when I see a person, I already see in my head more or less how their chart will look like, and it is confirmed in 99% of the cases. On the other hand, if I never seen a person, because I have orders all over the world, people order through my webpage from America, from England, and when I see their chart, I already can say how their aura looks like. And this is always confirmed by the pictures. So these two things are related, and everything in the spiritual world and in the world as a whole is related. But astrology, the beauty about it, it can give us a scientific explanation of what we see, what these colors mean, how we can use these strengths in order to overcome our weaknesses. Because you see, everybody is born with at least 2 or 3 major life goals in life. Everybody. And a lot of people go through life without being consciously aware of what they actually have to achieve.
I think 3/4 population does, really.
That is exactly the problem. And some of them live up to 40, 50 years, and they still don't know why they have come in this life and what they have to do. And so by looking at the chart, this is what I always say to my clients. For example, I see clearly 1 or 2 major life goals outlined there, and I can tell them straight away, have you worked on this? Or have you worked on that? Sometimes I see that they sort of like subconsciously were doing it, but now they got a confirmation that is why they are born over here. Right? And so astrology can help us very much in this respect.
Lubomir, this is something very fascinating, very powerful, and you do private reading at your...
Yes, I
think... Where is your office, actually?
I think I'm probably the only professional astrologer in Perth, to be honest, with the office which is officially opened in the city of Perth. I opened it about 2 years ago. The address of my office is Unit 10, 18 Sterling Street in Perth, which is just next to Sunday Times.
Oh, yes, I know. Now where this is. Now, that sounds, and I'm quite sure that quite a few of our listeners might get in touch with you. I have your phone number here with me, so when they get in touch with me, I most certainly will convey it to you. Now, conscious living.
Mm-hmm.
tell me, what will you be doing in your workshop? What actually you have sort of got yourself geared up to do for this time of the conscious living?
Okay, the workshop is called Your Psychic Abilities Revealed by Astrology. And it's going to be conducted on 5th of November, which is Saturday, from 5 p.m. till 7 p.m. on Conscious Living, which is located in Robinson Pavilion in Showgrounds Exhibition Center. As I told you already, at the moment of birth, the planets imprint their influences on each one of us. And to a great extent, our psychic abilities depend to what it is written in our astrological chart. In this practical workshop, I'm going to teach the people how they can use astrology in order to discover their potential extrasensory abilities. They can gain insight into how they can use their sixth sense in order to better fulfill their purpose in life. I also will teach them some exercises about how they can develop their intuition, because you see, intuition is similar to the physical body. Some, especially this is especially relevant for boys, some boys are born with this DNA that they have this capability to build up very great physical bodies, right? But if they don't exercise, all right, too much beer and pizza drinking in front of the television is not going to help their figure.
Well, it became a trend for the 21st century, I think.
And it's exactly the same thing with the psychic abilities. There are certain exercises, and I will teach the participants exactly this, how they can develop their extraordinary abilities. You can think about it like going to a psychic gym and exercising regularly in order to put these psychic abilities into a good shape. So at the end of the workshop, I also will include some live sample astrology reading with the random volunteers of the audience. So
well, that sounds very interesting. I'm planning to come to the expo.
You're most welcome.
And I think I will come to see you, because I find it very intriguing. You know, on the airways, I did have people sort of reading the stars. You know, the sort of, and different people, and somehow I find it great difference between them. You know, say you have I don't know what star you are, Leo or Scorpio or whatever, and somehow you can get different reading.
Well, it is similar, like, for example, 10 people going to see the same movie, right? And after they go out, you will get 10 different versions of what they saw on that movie.
Their perception,
I mean, the lines will, I mean, all of them will go along the same lines approximately, but everybody will explain it according to their own perceptions, according to their own feelings. And so it's very important that you have this inborn capability to interpret correctly.
Well, that's what you said earlier. Really, this is a magic word. You must have the capability and understanding to interpret what is going on
and
around.
To formulate it properly so that people can understand you, what you're talking about. Because if you start talking on a language which is incomprehensible for other people, there's not much point.
You haven't achieved anything, actually. Exactly. You just listen to your own voice and you know what you are talking about, but not the rest of the world.
Exactly. And I think I'm blessed with this capability to be able to explain to people in a very ordinary language what are the most important things in their life, which are actually very difficult topic to interpret. But I think I'm born with this ability to be able to tell them in a very simple language.
Well, Lubomir, you are Slav. You have to. You are Slav, and the Slavs, they have this sort of
we're genetically predisposed to spirit, isn't
definitely,
it?
Yes. Lubomir, thank you very much for talking to me, and it's been a really eye-opener for me, because not that I knew very much about it, but I have a fair idea now sort of what you're talking about and what it is all about. Because when people say astrology, they automatically go to the stars and say, right, you know, it's fortune teller or something like this.
It's not exactly about fortune telling. It's more about self-knowledge.
Yeah, and of course.
I'll give you another example. Let's say, for example, if you grow up a tree, let's say you plant an apple tree, and you know the approximate rainfall in this place. If you know, for example, the climate, if you know the soil, if you know what tree you planted over there, it's not so difficult to predict what tree is going to grow up over there in 3 years' time and what fruit is going to bear, isn't it? And so with astrology, something similar. there. If you know all the elements about yourself, it's not so difficult to make predictions as well. But the most important thing is to know the element.
Well, that's what it's all about. Listeners, you just heard Lubomir Dimitrov. He's a professional astrologer. Please go to the expo, which is going to be held in November at Claremont Showgrounds. It's been held for quite a few years, and I'm quite sure you'll be fascinated by Lubomir. He's a very charming, and of course he will explain to you a lot of things perhaps some of you didn't know, as I didn't. And I'm actually very happy to meet Lubomir, and I hope I'll have a chance to talk to Lubomir. And Lubomir, you have a web page, don't you?
Yes.
And that's, I believe, I got in front of me already, gave it to it. It's www.lubomir, LUBOMIR.NAME, name. So that's very easy to remember, I'm quite sure.
It's a little bit unusual because normally web pages end up with .com or .com.
Yes, I was just going to ask you, how come that didn't?
Well, because this is a new domain name which only appeared about 5 years ago, and it's called name. So if you have a name, like for example my name is Lubomir, you can make up a web page which is lubomir.name. Very simple.
Interesting. That's very, and of course the phone number at the mobile is 04399 80782. I repeat that, 04399 80782. Well, if you cannot remember, and I'm quite sure you cannot, please you can give me a ring later on 92275958, and I will be only happy to give it to you. And again, please go to Expo and have an opportunity to meet Lubomir and talk to him, especially applying to the Slav people, because there's a great deal of listeners in here. Please go see Lubomir and talk to him if you have some questions that you really would like to answer and find out something about yourself. Please go to see Lubomir. Lubomir, it was pleasure meeting you. And thank you very much, and I hope I'll be able to see you at Expo.
Absolutely.
And good luck.
Thank you very much.